Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Grant Talks. Hope everybody is well. It's a crazy time. COVID is kind of letting people out. The world is going back to normal. Hypnotists are going back to stages. It's what we've all been waiting for. It's absolutely fantastic. There we go. Natasha Stanley is here already. First comment. She's done well the past couple of weeks. She's slipped and she's lost her title. Oh, Roy Miller is here as well. Good evening, Roy. The world's getting back to normal. There's HypnoThoughts. There's a big hypnosis conference going on in Vegas right now. There's some guys there. A lot of Europeans aren't allowed over there, which is such a shame. Tonight's guest is, I could read through his bio of all the things that he's done. He's in the Hypnotist Hall of Fame. What he hasn't done in hypnosis isn't really worth knowing. So please show him lots of love, ask him lots of questions as well, and put the round of applause emoji in the comment section as well, and let us know where you are watching from. So please, without further ado, please make him feel very welcome with Scott McFall. And there he is.
Howdy.
How are you?
How are you? Good. How are you?
Okay.
I'm in the middle of a big thunderstorm, by the way.
Oh.
So we've got lightning going all around us, so we might have an interesting service. It'll be fun.
Well, as long as you don't have that Canadian internet, every time we've had Canadian guests on, their internet just disappears, and it's to do with solar flares, apparently.
Well, it'll be fun.
Exactly. That's what it's all about. Let us know what first brought you to hypnosis. What was your first experience? How did you discover hypnosis?
I was born very premature and spent the first few months of my life in a plastic box at the Mayo Clinic. And when I was 11, I had my first heart surgery. And that was also at Mayo. And the nurse used hypnosis to help to do pain management and distract me from what I was going through during that surgery. And back then, as you can imagine, pain drugs were not what they are today, especially if you're pediatric and they're not going to want to kill you with the drugs, you know. So during the aftermath of that surgery, which was one where they cut through the back and then spread the ribs and so forth, it was a very interesting amount of pain, and hypnosis helped me to be able to sit next to the pain. The technique that they were using at the time was like to move it slightly and then imagine sitting next to it. So your nervous system still has it, but it has it, over there kind of thing,
Yeah.
And so, of course, I was helped by it and became passionate about studying it. That's how I got sucked into the whole thing back then.
Now, you had you've got a magical background as well. Do you think that has kind of helped with the performance side of hypnosis?
Well, I think the acting background, I was a child actor in something called Shade Tree Players, and I spent 10 years touring. So I was playing all these characters and learning how to method act, and understanding method acting was a big part of understanding using hypnosis to help people's lives. I think the acting and, of course, stage hypnosis is great for clinical, for all kinds of reasons. But many have illustrated those reasons. We don't have to, beat that drum here. But the thing is that the method acting really starts to teach you the idea of modeling or emulation learning, which I think that, so with regard to stage hypnosis, that's a riot. And of course, I toured doing it for many years and toured NACA and all that. And in the magic field, I opened for Johnny Cash in front of 10,000 people at one time, which is a riot because my act couldn't possibly have been seen by anybody, past the 1,000 person mark. So, but it was a fun day, and the thing is that all of those experiences bring you to realizing that we're just, we're either entertaining people or we're helping with human development. It's all, it kind of braids together like one rope, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the joys of performing hypnosis is sometimes people can look at it as being, it can be dismissive or kind of somehow undermines what the therapeutic side of hypnosis. But I do think both together do benefit each other.
Yeah, I've never, ever had anybody think that my act diminished, clinical hypnosis. And I got thousands of clients over the years from the shows, So I can't see it that way. I never, ever have seen it that way, ever. Some of the best hypnotists that were in the clinic that I knew all did demonstrational hypnosis. including Erickson for that matter. I mean, Erickson loved doing demos and stuff. So, yeah, I guess I just see it as all the same thing.
Yeah,
in some ways.
It's yeah. I mean, being able to get up on stage and actually show people how profound hypnosis can be is one of the best adverts for hypnotherapy in all sorts of different ways. But tell us about the first time that you performed. Tell us how that was.
Well, I did a lot of performing. So the first memory that comes to mind, though, is when I was still too young to be in bars, but I booked a club and pretended to be over 21. So I was in the club illegally. And it was a country western bar, in the Midwest. And I remember being so stressed about the fact that I was there underage that I couldn't get worried about the show because I was just hoping I didn't get busted for being under 21,
Yeah.
And I remember having my little, I wanted to get a beer that looked sophisticated because I wanted to look older. So I remember I was holding an Erlanger walking around. And, but yeah, it was a blast and it went great. It was a wonderful time, and I played so many hundreds of clubs. Back then, the agencies, we work Tuesday through Saturday night in clubs and then play colleges earlier in the evening. So you'd go into a town, you'd do the college, then you'd go over to the club, then you'd either get on the plane or get in the car and go to the next college or club, and you just did that several days a week.
Wow.
And so you do hundreds and hundreds of shows. And then doing the fairs, you do 3 to 5 a day. So the world is a different place than it was then, but live entertainment was literally everywhere at that time.
Yeah. So yeah,
and so it was so fun.
Darren Fraser says hello as well. I don't know if you can see the questions coming up on screen as well, but Darren Fraser says, good afternoon, gentlemen. Always great having great hypnotists. Natasha Fallon, I still find it insane. You have to be 21 to drink over there. Yes, very much so.
I was better at drinking in a healthy way when I was younger, not when I was older. I think it should go, you can drink until you're 50. And then, you probably are bad at it. So, yeah.
One of the things I always ask guests is about challenges they faced along the way. That we all had that one or two shows where things didn't go as planned, and you want the stage to open up and you disappear through the stage, never to perform again. But there's always a lesson to be learned from within that. So tell us about one of your challenges you faced as a performer.
Well, one of the times I was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota has a law that you have to be registered to be a hypnotist there. They have to fingerprint you, and there's a license for it, and it's part of their clairvoyant license that they require. Okay, and I didn't have it at one time when I was playing a very big disco, and I was going in there. And all of a sudden, I'm getting busted. The cops come in. I've got people about to be hypnotized. They handcuff me, drag me, off the stage. That was a fun night that I felt was pretty stressful. And the owner just paid for the license with the cops at the back of the room. And I filled the paperwork out. They took the cuffs off, and I went back on and did the show.
Nice.
But that was a fun night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about problems in shows, I think that the way you get over that is about getting over the idea that you're special. Like, if you go in and you got no ego in it, and you realize, think about being a great hypnotist, even a great show person, the same as being a plumber or doing a good job cleaning a house, but you get the ego out of it, and then there's nowhere to fall. Your ego can't fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, Natasha says at least they weren't already hypnotized. Well, yeah, you can't have everything. I remember another fun one when you're talking about those kind of stories where a woman who picked up a glass, and we were doing the hand clasp test, and she got interrupted in the middle of the hand clasp, and she didn't know it, but she couldn't put her glass down because she got caught in the double bind, right? So I leave. She's in the audience. She's not on stage. She's not somebody hypnotized and anything like that, But she can't put the damn glass down. So the owner of the club calls me. I'm 100 miles out of town, and I'm having to talk her down from this glass being stuck in her hand. And it was so great because then she bought a weight loss program. She became an advocate. She did one of the ads for us, and she was a riot. But she literally, when you think when you start to think of this as a goofy gaffe, it's funny when the little accidents happen, because that's when you realize how literal people get.
Yeah.
Doing this, and it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fascinating, and I think sometimes it's a more profound demonstration when things don't quite go the way that either you or they expect it to go, and it makes it more profound at that point because it takes away that whole other just play acting on stage as well. So yeah, great story. Oh, I just lost you then for a second.
Yeah, the person to watch to be a great stage hypnotist is watch Johnny Carson handle guests on The Tonight Show, an old vintage Tonight Show, and watch how well he can be this awesome guy who lets the other people shine. So he's this brilliant star maker. And that's what a great hypnotist is. There's such a difference. Like I used to do juggling. Well, a juggler, you need to make it look hard and it's all about you, Well, as a hypnotist, that's not true. It's very important that they're the star, that you're this amazing host of a person. And the more you need that admiration to come on you, the less you will get.
Yeah.
The more you need to be the star, the less stable you will seem. And so if you're easy, in the magic world, the guy who has this demeanor is Dirk Saunders, the guy that does the floating table. Dirk is such a nice man and such a, you want to hang out with the guy. He's just lovely. Yeah. And he seems like a star. You meet him and he seems like a star, but he's so easy and approachable and the energy is a certain way. And if you want to get booked, I mean, that's how it works. You're the easiest person to work with. You show up on time, you leave when it's time to leave. You don't need the admiration, and you're just doing a lovely job and letting other people shine and have their experience. And it's very hard to have things go bad if you're in that framework. Very hard to go bad.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And great advice there as well about, your job as a hypnotist is to let other people shine. I think too many people come into this industry with that kind of ego side of things and forget about that, especially people with a showbiz background, they want to make it about them. So great advice there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Natasha says, Andre said something last week which made sense. The hypnotist is just the conductor, the volunteers of the orchestra.
That's right. Exactly. And the thing that a lot of people do if they're nervous, some of the most famous stage hypnotists in history were actually not that good at the job. And, they were stepping on the lines of the people on stage. They didn't trust the improvisational stuff that was going to come out of those people. So they over-managed the stage. Now, Ormond McGill was really a lovely person who would let other people shine. He was nice enough to write the foreword to the stage manual that I used teaching for years. And Ormond, lovely man. I was just talking to his friend Chuck Mignosa actually yesterday. But it's very important to think of Ormond's personality. He was the quintessential stage hypnotist. And he was the most lovable guy. I mean, when you met him, it's just like, like he couldn't have been cooler, Yeah. And Ormond, one time, he was showing the perpetual rotating hand to people. And as he was showing this very, very detailed woman, as he's explaining how it works, says, "Is there a specific place you need to touch on the wrist, Ormond?" And he goes, "Oh, yes, you need to touch the somnambule bone right here." And this woman's writing down somnambule, and he would just smile and wait. And then she's like, "Oh, you were kidding." And he's like, "Yes, dear." So like, instead of berating her for being too literal, he created a dynamic where she discovered that she was being too literal, right? And he trusted those people to get it. He trusted, and so if you create that space, your volunteers will take your show to nirvana. If you just let them.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, get out of the way and they will make it magic for you.
Yeah, I think that's where there's exactly that point. It's especially if you're a nervous performer, you give the suggestion, you wait for it to hit, it doesn't quite hit the way you want, and then you move on quickly because you want to move away from it. But the reality is, like you've just said then, it's spot on, is that's when the magic happens, when they interpret it, it sinks in, and then it comes out.
Yeah, you've got to change their physiology first if something isn't going right. And you remember, you go slow, slow, slow in the beginning of the act. Yeah. You repeat, repeat, repeat. You give them plenty of time to react. And there's less time and less repetition as they've gone 5, 6, 7 routines in to get the act to go well. But in the beginning, lots of repeating, lots of waiting, and match and pace the slowest reacting subject. So you sit and match and pace the slowest reacting person to get that whole group responding. And there are a lot of mistakes I see. For instance, people giving wordy suggestions where there are no sensory cues in the suggestions. There's no sight, there's no touch. They're giving linguistic jargon. So there's no, when you're doing the hot and cold test, a lot of people don't know that the hot and cold test is a gaffe, where because of the fact that they're fanning, they start to sweat really a lot, and they're close to each other. And that sweat evaporating as they stop makes them start to get cold. So it's the same as eye catalepsy being a convincer in the sense that their eyes are rolled up. Well, the stage show is set up to go from event to event for a reason. The reason the happy, sad, funny thing happens early is to increase the emotional suggestibility, like John Kappas would work on, or others. And so there's a physical suggestibility thing with the arm catalepsy or eye catalepsy, but then there's the emotional suggestibility right away, which then ties together to make the rest of the act work. So one of the really horrible mistakes I see so many stage hypnotists making is they think the routines are random. And so they're losing subjects throughout their whole show because they do not understand the progressive nature of the convincers and the routines. Yeah. And they're so interested in being original that they change it too early. The originality comes from the subjects or the people on stage, our volunteers. It doesn't come from us.
No.
It comes from them. They're the ones who save your butt.
I was just about to say, and it's a great point that you made there, because it's, especially with YouTube, the internet and everything else, and the forums all about being originality. There's so many new people that come into this that are maybe two years into it that then suddenly want to write a completely original show, but by doing so miss the important parts of why the show actually works. Great.
Right. I was performing at the Magic Castle the year before COVID at the Cellar and the Hat and the Hare, which is sort of the member development stages that are, downstairs in the castle. And, I was mastering a lot of classics and, things that I never had time to do when I was doing commercial shows. So I was just going back to really classic stuff and just hammering away on the technique and the structure and why it's funny and what the timing is. And I mean, just doing basics. It's the same as a martial art. You do basics. And trust the basics. Nobody's going to be in a fight and do a 540 spinning kick. Yeah. So you're being comfortable with the basics is what turns you into a great someday. Yeah. Loving the basics.
Yeah, I think it was it Bruce Lee that says, "Don't fear the man that has done 10,000 punches. Fear the man that has mastered one punch 10,000 times."
Right on. Right on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you get giddy. You get giddy thinking you got to make this entertainment a certain way. What I think is the best thing to do is walk in thinking you're the best host at the best party. There's no way to do this wrong if you just don't have anything to prove and you're centered and you go in, and it should feel just like walking into your living room to pick up the remote for the television.
Brilliant.
It should feel no different than that.
That's a great way of looking at it. We mentioned about your challenging show there, but you just mentioned also that you went on with Johnny Cash. Tell us about a standout show for you so far in your career.
Well, most of the standout shows that I did actually happened at a dinner theater that I own called Mysteria that I sold a few years ago. But, I had Don Wayne, who directed Copperfield, come in and direct the illusions that were the in-house illusions there. And, most of the really great controlling the entire environment, controlling the lights, having great production, that kind of thing happened at Mysteria. But I used to love to play, like, even places like Minot up by Canada where there's an Air Force base. and all the clubs would be full of bass people, and people would drive down from Canada or touring NACA. Colleges are always a lovely time. Colleges are easy and lovely. Things have changed politically on campus compared to when I toured them a lot. So you're writing, you have to really think ahead because you're dodging landmines and walking on eggshells a little bit. But college age people are so great in the way the symptoms of hypnosis hit them, and they're so animated. Down here in Florida where I live, I live by the Villages where, it's God's waiting room. Nobody's young, And so the shows aren't the same when you've got all people over 60 or 70. And you really have to think ahead. So the standout shows would happen with those nice young people in those great, really fun venues where everybody's, excited, alive, and having a ball, And in Minot, the reason it was so great is eventually there'd be 500 people trying to get into a bar that seats 150. And you'd take off your sunglasses and people would just fall down into hypnosis. Eventually they'd be so jacked up by seeing the posters and seeing the videos and doing all this stuff. So you'd be walking in and you couldn't get through the monologue because people would just make eye contact with you and go out because of the hysterical intensity of the drama. So eventually the induction there wasn't the normal monologue and doing the induction. It was literally, I'd take my sunglasses off, people would fall down.
Brilliant.
And go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point about where the induction starts. We always say that the induction starts when they see the show poster, to build up that expectation. But to get them to those levels where you take your sunglasses off, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the treatment starts in the advertisement or the PR, not when they're in your office.
So yeah, I've got a question. I'll read it out because it only shows part of it when it puts it on screen. But Down says he was offered a show at a college that didn't allow pronouns. I could have done it, but the budget wasn't worth the travel and the risk of calling someone sir or ma'am. It's a very interesting kind of where the world lies at the moment with that.
Yeah, see, I'd have accidentally dropped a couple of swear words in the conversation and made sure I didn't get that show because, yeah. The thing is, those of us who've been doing this a long time find political correctness. I have an allergy to it. I'm allergic to political correctness.
Yeah.
So, I understand the necessity and I'll do what I can for a corporate culture. And yeah, but you can't, once somebody's setting up landmines, their goal is to be an enforcer.
Yeah.
There's no way to walk the line tight enough because they will not be happy unless they get to enforce the thing they made up. So keep in mind, a person who likes membership wants to enlarge or perfect their jurisdiction. So when you're into that, when you're dealing with those membership people, if they're trying to have a jurisdiction right away, you're going to have it's going to be an unfortunate relationship, chances are.
Yeah. I think one of the issues we have, again, I don't know if it's the same in America, but very much here in the UK, is the cancel culture of where lines of comedy, what they were 10 years ago, are very different to what they are now. But people are being pulled up for things that they have done previously, that they have said on Twitter or Facebook 10 years ago. And it's a crazy thing because hypnosis and comedy we do kind of work up to that line. So it's a very interesting world at the moment.
Well, I have maturity is the ability to deal with frustrated desire alone.
I like that.
That's Fritz Perls. Maturity is the ability to deal with frustrated desire alone. So you have all these immature people who act as if the world didn't exist before them, and they're smarter than all human history, Just ask them. And so the issue is that when you're in that thing, you've just got to do your show. And you've got to say what it is, and you've got to advertise and do it as advertised.
Yeah.
Right? I remember one time I was doing a show at a company and it was so weird. The people were hypnotized. The audience was out there and nobody was reacting to the show. And I'm like, what's wrong? Well, it turned out the vice president of the company had died the day before and nobody told me. Wow. Right? So everybody's there grieving this death. Nobody even brings it up. But it was fascinating because in grief, they did not have permission at that stage to respond to feeling good. It's like feeling good was against the rules of that stage of losing this poor person that they all cared about. But I wish they'd have mentioned it before I went on. I could have acknowledged it. I could have something, but it was kind of when you have your discussions before you go up, try to get in touch with that and try to bring it up, put it on the table, and then slip it to the side.
Yeah.
Bring it up, put it on the table, slip it to the side, and then your show will go great. you know.
Yeah, I think that's. Oh, sorry, I've just pressed the wrong button. I think that's great advice, not just for that, but if something happens that shouldn't happen within the show, it's always best to, in showbiz, you always kind of say the show must go on, but that doesn't mean just carry on regardless. Like you said, address it, put it to one side and move on. I had that happen. I always joke about this and I don't tell it publicly that often, but I had my pants pulled down once on stage. Lesson learned from that show, I'll tell you that. But you address it, change your position on stage, and then move on. But that was definitely a learning curve.
Yeah, that cracks me up, and I'm avoiding 4 or 5 politically incorrect jokes right now. But that's an interesting experience to go through. I've torn my pants on stage before. I've had my pants tear out.
Wow. Which
is also a weird thing. If you're wearing white underwear and a black tux, that's a good look for you. So yeah. That's good. But yeah, and the other thing to watch out for nowadays is really drugs. One of the pieces of advice I give all my performer friends now is bring your own food, bring your own water, bring anything you're going to consume with you. Because right now, just like an attractive young person in a club, if you're the center of attention, a lot of my performer friends have had people slip them stuff. Yeah. It's not as rare as you think. Yeah. And so I would, I'm really been giving people the advice to be really careful with regard to what you consume on site. When you are the center of attention, yeah, you are a mark. Yeah. And people have had that happen.
Yeah, I will just say, when you said about drugs and then you said you've had your people and you said bring your own food, bring your own drink, I thought you were going to say bring your own drugs then.
No, yeah. No, So, but just, you want to be on your best cognitive ability, and people think it's a hoot to take the person that's the center of attention and, as you say, pull their pants down. And one of the ways that happens is slipping them a Mickey or roofying, basically, the entertainer. People think that's hilarious. Yeah. And it's the wrong kind of people think that's hilarious. So, I tend to suggest strongly that people bring their own food and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those, like you said, it's as the performer, as the person on stage, the person that's on the poster, you are a target for all sorts of things, from people that are wanting to create a case against you, for people that are wanting to find a way of getting attention. You are a target on so many levels, so you have to make sure your back is covered tenfold in every different way, shape and form.
True of personal relationships and whatnot. Like beware of people who are attracted at you when you're performing, especially the ones who are really zealously supportive or radically admiring. 10 to 12% of the population has borderline personality disorder.
Yeah.
So when you have somebody who come up and they're a fan and they're 150% positive, in the back of your head, especially if they're inappropriately positive, put up a boundary right away. Don't need that admiration. Put up a boundary right away, because what goes up must come down. Artificial highs always lead to artificial lows in your own ego, but in fans or people who are coming up or people who want to befriend you, you really have to pretend you're an animated character and keep the sacred boundary and get out of there. Just keep the sacred boundary and get out of there. Assume that you have all the friends and loved ones you need when you perform.
Yes, great advice.
Yeah.
COVID, it's happened. The world has gone crazy with it. The world's coming back to normal again now. Here in the UK, we've had our Freedom Day. Everybody's out doing normal things now, and weirdly, our cases are dropping at the moment. So we don't know how that's going to go. I've heard some stories that some parts of America, masks are becoming mandatory inside now. How are things where you are, and how has shows and things changed, do you believe, since COVID?
Well, I put plastic masks on subjects for quite a while and set them really far apart and that sort of thing when I did live shows for a while during COVID. So we'd have the plastic shield masks. And my wife is involved in theater here in Eustis, and they had little ones that come from the bottom that are plastic masks. So, we've gone to a headset and then hanging mics so that we don't have the mic in their face and going from person to person. So we changed the way the mics worked. We changed to have the hanging microphones. we changed to doing a headset on me, and this all just to keep from, keep that 6 foot kind of thing going on. We used this is actually one of your other. I used peacock feathers to do anchors, very long peacock feathers to do the touching rather than being next to them. I've also used pool noodles. I can't remember whose idea that was. That wasn't my idea originally. I can't remember whose it was. But I liked using the peacock feathers better, but they're not as long as they should be. You want that nice 6 foot distance. But, those are the kinds of things that we've changed. The thing that happens is you go and they're saying, gosh, we need all these rules. And then you watch all of the people breaking them anyway. Yeah. And so then, but you still need to look like you're doing the rules. Yeah. And you still need to cover your liability and make sure that you're looking like you're overdoing it. Yeah. You yourself need to overdo it if you're in that kind of area. In Texas and Florida, the rules are a little more lax, but I still handle it as though they're not. Yeah. And it's not a political thing to me. It's just I don't want to create a liability problem for me or the venue or anything like that.
Yes, I have a long purple finger. It sounds a bit rude, but yeah, it's. I did a wedding last weekend, and they were all literally they were all over the place, and the manager of the venue was like, "Oh yeah, we don't worry about it. Just do it. Do it what you normally do." And it's like, I can't do that, because if someone puts a video on Facebook or social media of me doing that, then it just looks, again, you become the target.
I'm really glad that a lot of the shows I did were not videotaped. When I think back, because the material would get so much different back in the 80s and 90s, I'm relatively certain I would be pilloried, and not for anything I did, but just how graphic the shows would become in clubs or the directions people would take them. Yeah. I get very upset with hypnotists who make the material radically blue in their act, because the volunteers will take the show where that group is without your help. Yeah. You just be as amazing and cool and looking like it makes it twice as funny if you seem excellent and above board and like you're kind of a straight-laced person and it goes sideways. It's 10 times funnier than if you look out of control. Yeah. The more you do a double take and it's like it went over the line, the better it is. So no matter what that audience needs, the volunteers will take you there. And the more you look kind of like an amazing, smart, kind of charming person, but not taking and pushing, don't push an agenda. Yeah. And the level of the material will keep you out of trouble, because it'll be the subjects, not you.
Yeah. And I think audiences love to see something that they think that's the first time that's happened, and your reaction makes it look like it's unique. So yeah, when she says something that's a bit inappropriate and you kind of go and you're shocked by it, then the audiences love that.
Yeah, there's literally spots in the show where I have deliberate double takes, or deliberately drop the mic to my side when I'm carrying a mic and just wait and shake my head. And every audience acts like that's just never happened before. And it just escalates the audience response so much. Yeah. And I realize it's kind of contrived, but eventually you just know, here's how I milk this moment for that group to have a better time. And you're obviously very good at that. And you only can do that because you just are calm, and you're comfortable. And once you're there, and the people that you're working with or training or dealing with, it's just, you might as well make them love hypnosis and want to go. Maybe they need to quit smoking. Maybe they need to lose weight. Maybe it's the only way they're going to relax enough to not keep screwing up their relationships because they're anxious. Yeah. So you being an ambassador for how they might make a decision later to use it is a cool thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's even the silly stuff with hypnosis. It's so important to be a good advocate for it, because like you said, someone that comes to see that show, you don't know where they have been in their life before that, but that could be the moment that makes them go, oh, do you know what? If that can make Uncle Bob do that, then it's amazing, and it can help me achieve this.
That's right. That's right. And, what happens with hypnosis in England is everyone's too competency based, everything's about the intellect, and like the sensory acuity part of it, the juice of it, and the emotion of it, and the association of it is sacrificed for this linguistic part of the brain and knowing what label to put on it.
Yeah.
Everyone I've trained from England, and I've trained a lot of people from England, lots of people from England fly over and train with me, and it's always a little extra effort to get the authentic sensory-based thinking going on, because there's a little bit of intellectualizing that too much respect for the description of it all, too much respect for the intellect of it or something. I can't explain it exactly, but it takes a little effort to get everybody raw enough to do the job, in my opinion.
Yeah, David Banfield says that. Great comment, Scott. And you're right, especially English audiences as well. They're very similar in one sense. If you die on an English audience, you die on an English audience. But yeah, you're right. We separate from that. Not say woo woo, but we separate from the emotional side of it and just concentrate on making it fit in this box. And if it fits in this box, we can recreate it 100 times, but that's not always the case, especially with hypnosis.
Constants are also baloney, right? So, science is another word for trial and error. Yeah. And somehow in the culture, based on our insecurity, we've changed the meaning of science. Science is a process that is a process of trial and error, and it's systematic trial and error, and that's all that it is. And it's amazing how people have, so let's say people are either into freedom, security, competency, belonging, or self-expression. Okay, well, if someone's into self-expression, they're difficult to teach because they're different, and it's all about being unique. Well, a competency-based person, every question leads to another question, which leads to another question. So the problem is they control the agenda. Instead of having a raw experience and learning, they're actually trying to ask questions to make the case that they already know. Because they're trying to take their questions and relate it to the map that was already in their head. So, people say there's no such thing as a bad question. Wow, is that not true? There are plenty of bad questions.
Yeah.
And as a hypnotist, getting someone to stop the inquisitive profile, to shift from competency to experience, that's one of the most magical things that hypnosis accomplishes.
Yeah.
But if you, when that inquisitive person is asking you questions, start to think like you're going to perform to get the competency that you're going to make them know you're smart, you're already done. Because then it's a competition. That makes sense?
Absolutely, Scott. I will say this as well. We have some amazing guests on here, but you know what? It amazes me how sometimes when you think you've heard it all as well, and when somebody puts it in such a way that it just makes so much sense, and people watching this as well, please do take this advice because it's absolute gold that's being delivered here tonight.
Well, it's very sweet of you to say, but it's easy to do that if all you've done for 35 years is talk about the same crap. But yeah, but it's really true though that the only way you get someone who's competency-based, hyper-suggestible is they know you're smart because you know how smart they are.
Yeah.
So, complementing their intellect and getting it out of the way is very important. You're actually helping to stop them having to show you that they can disagree with you.
Yeah.
And so it's magic in inductions for those types of people to acknowledge that, and then it's called the flatter and add strategy. You have to flatter them and add because there's no other way in a person who's got to be competent. So it's fun stuff. But I know that we're supposed to be talking about stage, and I'm sorry I kind of digressed into therapy there. I guess a little bit of therapeutic stuff.
Well, no, I mean it's hypnosis is hypnosis is hypnosis. If you deliver, you're delivering that suggestion to a person on stage. It's doing it in the same way as well. It's getting that analytical person on stage to be animated and to be the way that you want them to be as well. So absolutely. I always ask this as well, and you're giving loads of great tips and advice to people watching tonight as well. This is fantastic. But if you were to give your one golden piece of advice, your tidbit, what would that be?
Take acting classes.
Yeah.
And even if you're a therapist, forget about Freud for sure, forget he exists. And then study Jung and forget he exists because he was too complex too. It's not that hard. But when you're studying psych, only pay attention to Skinner, and then when you're trying to help people, study acting.
Yeah.
Because teaching them method acting is the way you teach them to model or emulate learn rather than use deductive reasoning. And there's nothing more powerful than actually totally knowing you can do method acting, noticing that you can model, that you can emulate without competition.
Fantastic. Again, I always ask this as well. But if you were to recommend only 2 books, you could probably do 3 if you want. If you were to recommend 2 books to people, whether it be about performance, hypnosis, what would your 2 books be? Oh,
Today, I will say it is The New People Making by Virginia Satir.
yeah.
And My Voice Will Go With You, The Teaching Tales of Milton Erickson.
Yes.
And by the way, only read that book on Erickson. Stop there. Read that book and stop there. Because otherwise you'll make a myth that doesn't exist. Just read The Teaching Tales of Milton. My Voice Will Go With You, and then quit reading about Milton. He's awesome, but just read that book. The rest of them are smarty pantses trying to make something complicated. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and it's been really great to kind of listen to your insights as well. It's been absolutely fantastic. Where can people find you? What's your website address?
Just find me on Facebook. I mean, we have a group, the Master Hypnotist Society student group that's there. But just find me on Facebook, and I'll direct you to the group that matches what you're doing if you're into it. Because I'm mostly stacked with the 37 schools we deal with here in the States. So, but I would love to hear from you all. And thanks so much for having me. Had a blast with you, man. Fantastic. So I also need to sneak away because they're tolling my Jag out of the front yard. So have fun. We'll see y'all later on.
See you later. Take care, Scott. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure. Have fun.
Cheers, guys. So we're absolutely some great advice there from Scott. He's had to go because he's a fellow Jag driver, and his is being towed as we speak. So hopefully mine's not going to be towed. Great interview there. And again, each week it's nice to bring these true experts within the hypnosis industry to come and give their insights to you. Do let me know in the comment section as well where you're watching from. And if you're watching this on the replay, do let me know as well. Guys, thank you very much for joining me this week. Each week we try and bring you some experts within the stage hypnosis industry. And each week, it's nice to always learn something new and get a different kind of angle from things as well. So guys, take care. And if you're not subscribed on YouTube, please go subscribe on YouTube now. It means you get a notification whenever these shows come up, and go through. And there's a great, I think we've been doing this for 18 months now, and each week there's an expert hypnotist with some great insights. So if you're wanting to learn about stage hypnosis, then look at all these previous interviews and you will be amazed at the information that's there. Guys, thank you very much for joining me as well. Richard Cole, a Jag, what's that? Brilliant. Cheers. Fantastic, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. I shall see you next week.